like to call the meeting to order. If everyone can stand.
I
for
did
the
get
pledge
your
of
email.
allegiance, Please.
I knew it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And one announcement before we begin. When everybody leaves, if you could go down to the basement and out by the Board of Health, the front steps are treacherous and you will be in 140 before you know it if you attempt to do that. So please do not go out the front door.
The sidewalk is also icy, so be careful.
I know Dennis and them are working on it, but it's another lovely day in the neighborhood.
Sure is.
So first agenda item, if Representative Moradin could come forward and the Kerrs, please.
Well, hello, Curtis. So, Lil Birdie told me a bit about all of your heroic actions. And unfortunately, I couldn't make it when the fire marshal was recognizing you for all the good that you did. That was in my dad. He sends his regards, so proud of you as well. But I wanted to bring you a commendation from the House of Representatives. It's not fire department, just so you know. But you hereby know to all that the Massachusetts House of Representatives offers its sincerest congratulations to Matt and Gianna Kirk. Recognition of your swift and decisive actions, which led to the capture and arrest of the suspect in the Crockett Road fires. The entire membership extends its very best wishes, expresses the hope of future good fortune and continued success in all of your endeavors. Given today, the 3rd of March, I know it doesn't seem like it, that's outside, 2026 is signed by the Speaker of the House, Ron Mariano, and myself, David Brady, State Representative, and honestly, you know how big of a proponent of public safety I am, but public safety extends beyond when you're wearing a badge or a shield or anything like that, or a uniform. It's making sure that our community and our roads are safe all the time. So thank you so much for all that you guys did. I'm really proud of you.
And now if you could come forward, this is honestly the best part of our job. I know you guys have been recognized locally on a state level from everyone, but the town of Upton truly appreciates you. I tell everyone when you move in, regardless of if you move in for the perfect house, the schools, the location, the reason you stay are our people. And you are the perfect example of that. The board thanks you. We don't have a proclamation. You have lots. This is from us. Thank you very much. Enjoy, and we truly appreciate what you did. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Really great. Really good.
Short and sweet. Thank you, guys. Next, Chief Bradley, we have an update on our public safety transition plan. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm sure if I get up.
It's okay. Good evening.
Good evening.
Right.
Lovely.
So just an update, I had sent a request to the acting town manager back in January for some promotions. And these are some of the things we had talked about back in June. When we gave you an update on the transition plan, moving forward and some of the benchmarks that we had. So just a quick review. Some of the key milestones that we were looking at is we did apply for a SAFER grant, as we spoke about last time, for additional personnel. Unfortunately, we weren't successful. We weren't chosen for that funding opportunity. But in parallel with that, we added additional staffing. So we added 2 paramedics, firefighter paramedics to our staffing, and they've been on for a few months now, going through some of the training. And if you recall, we had 2 paramedics that we sent. They were EMTs, firefighter EMTs. We sent them through the paramedic program, and that brings us up to 6 paramedics total right now, plus 1 firefighter EMT on the full-time side. So along with that, we have put in for additional staffing in the FY27 budget, which I'm sure we'll have some conversation about that. And our goal is to get to have 2 full-time firefighter paramedics working 24 hours a day. So we have enough coverage to staff the ambulance. So that's one of our future goals. So we completed a company lieutenant promotional process, and this was a long process. It started, almost 2 years ago with the announcement. And I think you've seen the announcement in the score breakdown of the process that we went through. It was stalled a few times. Some of it was union negotiations, and there was some talk about the company system and if that would change. That hasn't changed, and we're moving forward to hopefully promote two lieutenants to the company system. Also part of that discussion, we were talking about promoting our captain to assistant chief. So that's consistent with our plan is to give command really some more assistance in leadership and oversight. So based on that, we recommend that we promote Captain Daniel Lazarus to the position of assistant chief. And along with for the two lieutenants, after the process, we're recommending that firefighter Connor Schultz and firefighter Douglas Cook be promoted to the position of company lieutenant. So these positions were already in the budget. They've already been funded under the company system. We're just now filling those positions.
Questions, comments?
A tremendous amount of work. It's a very complex organization. Been a huge amount of change, obviously, with your transition. And just, we're always grateful. And I just want to recognize that for all the work that you personally put in to the process and the relationships and just navigating the organizational dynamics that we have in town. It's just phenomenal, and we're all much better off for it. So thank you.
Thank you. And it's challenging for staffing, especially on the call side.
Yeah.
Today's day and age.
Yeah.
And it's additionally, it's challenging to find firefighter paramedics.
Yeah.
So we are making some progress.
Yeah.
And we appreciate all of our first responders, and I think you've made some good choices, and now we have a path for everyone else in the organization to grow, which I think is important for morale.
Yeah, thank you for the update too.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Congratulations, man. We have on here, next item, town manager report and update, but yeah, we actually were gonna skip over that because,
Dennis,
you know, other than surviving your first 2 days, meeting everybody, we had a wee bit of excitement yesterday, but it was well handled. And, you know, hey, we're not gonna make you do a report. Okay.
Next time, I'll be ready.
Next, that's right. So do I have any public input or board member updates from anybody in the audience? Yep.
Whenever is available, should the board want me to offer a brief update from the state, I can.
I would love to. Please come forward.
Seeing as
Representative
no one
Brady.
ventured off.
Yeah, well, you know, I have to say our spectacular weather, I did have a request from someone. If anybody knows Mother Nature, could you tell her to cut it out?
Yes, I will work on that.
Yeah, please. If you've got that, Dave, we appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, select board members, and congratulations, Kristen, and welcome aboard. I'll be very brief. Obviously, we're here to recognize the first, but I did want to bring some updates from the Emerald City for you all. So the governor came out with her budget roughly a month ago, let's call it. And I did make sure to send it over to our acting town manager, which I'm sure he shared all the numbers with you all, but just for the many, many people who are watching at home, I will make sure to relay these numbers. So some of the kind of big, 30,000 foot numbers in terms of Chapter 70, which is our education funding. The governor's budget goes up over last year, roughly $242 million, bringing it to $7.6 billion of our budget. Our budget's just under 63 billion proposed right now. So it's a 3.3% increase over last year. She built in a per pupil expenditure of $75, which is certainly welcome given the fact that in recent years, our per pupil has started at $30. So seeing it kind of starting raising that floor, I think for every community is a good thing. UGA, unrestricted general government aid, went up 2.5%. It was increased by $33 million over last year, totaling $1.35 billion for totality of our budget. Circuit breaker reimbursement, which is obviously quite important for all of our schools and our districts, is $65.3 million. There's $150 million also sitting in the reserve. So basically that would be $803 roughly million there. which is 19% increase year over year. 112 million for regional school transportation. I know it's obviously quite important here in Upton. $198 million would be dedicated to universal free school meals, something that we stood up in the budget a couple of years ago coming out of COVID. We thought it was really important. So that's an $18 million increase over last year. And then specific numbers for Chapter 70, our Upton specific number doesn't really move that much, $39,979. But UGA went up to $679,316. Mendon Upton School District went to $13,395,319. That's up almost $150,000 over last year. And for Blackstone Valley, it's $9,689,572, just under $100,000 increase. I threw a whole bunch of numbers at you. I see you guys all trying to write them down. I'm more than happy to email them to you as well to make your life a bit easier.
That'd be great.
And I do want to go back and just say, one of the biggest things that we try to move the needle on is a per pupil number. Like I said, it used to be 30 as a starting point, and with all the respect in the world to any administration and any governor, I don't think that the budget they put out is worth the weight that it's printed on, any of the paper that's printed on. I think that we have our opportunity to look at the budget come April, and then the Senate has their opportunity to look at the budget come May. And so that's when we'll start to build. And so right now, the Ways and Means Committee is in the process of going around the state and soliciting feedback and having hearings and hearing from all the different secretaries and all their secretariats to talk about their priorities. The benefit of us is we get to see the tax implications and the returns and the receipts from when the governor releases her budget in January. We see ours in April, and then the Senate has an additional month as well. Last year, I was very proud to say that we got the per pupil number up to $150, which for our communities is huge. You know, when we passed the Student Opportunity Act with a 7-year full phase implementation, the two biggest nuggets in Student Opportunity Act were ELL, English language learners, and low income. He doesn't reap any of the benefits from.
Right.
Now, rising tide, I'm a full believer, it's all boats, but we need to continue to fight for all 351 cities and towns, which certainly includes my district of Grafton, Northbridge, and Upton. So I'm up there trying to advocate for more funding to come back. And obviously, I mentioned to Kristen when I chatted with her earlier this week, I'm going to sit and try to get some of the local priorities as well, and certainly try to secure an earmark or two. And I know that my counterpart in the Senate, Senator Fatman, will certainly do that as well. And last year, we were able to work with Representative Murray because of the uniqueness of Mendon and Upton. And so Rep. Murray and I in the House were able to secure some additional funding for an earmark that obviously carried through. And just so you all know, when we do our budget and the Senate does their budget, if there's any difference, if it's a dollar discrepancy from $1 to $2, or a grammatical change, a period to a comma, it goes to a conference committee. The conference committee is made up of 3 members from the House, 3 members from the Senate, and then we hash out all the differences within there. That conference committee ultimately puts forth a budget. It cannot be amended. It's an either up or down vote, and then that budget will then go to the governor's desk. The governor will have 10 days to do whatever she wants to do with it, veto it, sign it, send it back to us, things like that. So I'm more than happy to answer any questions. I threw a ton of info at you, but I just kind of wanted to make sure while I had the opportunity to sit here and in front of you all, I would certainly share what I know to be the governor's budget and tell you that I'm more than happy to try to continue fighting for the district.
We appreciate it.
Would you email out those figures?
What's that?
Can you email? out?
Of course I can. Of course, you know what? You can keep them.
Thank you.
She loves her numbers.
Yes,
Um,
I do.
But an email would be great. We
Yeah,
appreciate
yeah.
it.
So we'll make sure I can get that email. Maureen, if it's okay, I'll take it back and I'll put it into a better format, because
Yeah.
if I'm not a state representative with my handwriting, I could be a doctor maybe.
They-
It's not bad.
Yeah. So, but no, I'll definitely make sure to get them over to you all. And Kristen, again, welcome aboard. Excited to work with you.
And are you still on is it the Budget Committee or Ways and Means that you were on?
So I was on a couple of terms ago.
Yeah.
Fortunately or unfortunately, I've moved up in terms of kind of
Rank?
some rank and now serving in leadership. And so with that, you know, one of the big committees they end up pulling off of
Yeah,
is Ways and Means. So I'm not on it, but I have a wonderful working relationship with the chair of Ways and Means,
Good.
who I consider a personal friend,
Great.
and also the entirety of the staff, so, and the
Awesome.
committee members.
Yeah. good. Thank
Yeah,
you. Great.
no problem.
Thank you for the update.
My pleasure, my pleasure. And again, to the Kurt, congratulations, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming, Dave. I appreciate it. Appreciate everything.
Nice seeing you, Dan.
Take care. I'd give hugs, but there's a big
Thank
gap
you,
right here.
yeah.
Gotta get rid of
Table
that.
doesn't make handshaking.
I know, I know. Thank you.
Take care.
you.
Okay, remember, don't go out the front door if you leave.
No, I will not.
So, and then according to the agenda, the only other, the next and second to last thing is, we just wanted to go over everything with you. For those in the audience, we can't discuss anything unless we're in open meeting. So we can't update her, our new manager on, oh, hey, this is what we usually do, or this is how we handle things, because we violate open meeting law. So the next few minutes are gonna be, our meetings are usually the first and third Tuesday of every month. If it lands on a holiday or conflicts with our annual meeting or something, we do change it. We start at 6. They're scintillating, as you can tell. I don't know, that's questions you have for us?
Oh, I have a couple of
Oh,
questions.
good.
Let's go.
I love questions.
So, all right, I'm gonna start with the, I would love to know what you think the greatest strengths and areas for improvement are. And I don't mean about people, I mean about projects. Let's just be clear about that. You know, in terms of what's, you know, do you see on the horizon? What are some challenges that you feel we're up against, and where maybe some of the opportunities are that haven't previously been explored that you may like to see come up on a future agenda for discussion?
We have a challenge with the schools coming up. Is it 4.1, 4.3 million?
It's high. It's between 4 and 5 million. One of their issues was they were surprised with a $2 million deficit in their health
Increase
insurance.
in health insurance, yeah.
Oops. Don't know how that one got by. So that will be an issue because they came before us with a capital project last year of 33.3 million. And we didn't think they were gonna need an operational, but they have mentioned an operational. That is still very much in the weeds in the beginning, but we do keep in good touch with them. I think from a town standpoint, there is going to be a roundabout placed right in front of this building.
Okay.
I think 99% of the town despises it. There's concern, our fire chief raised concern. We were always told it was going to be just pure cement and be with the ability to be driven over, because of course the low beds and any of our equipment needs to go over that. Because as we all know, somebody hears a siren, it stops, and when they stop on a one car wide roundabout, they're gonna stop right in the middle. And not only that, but as Chief very eloquently explained, we are the trauma route. 140 is the trauma route between Milford and UMass. And we do not need planting and grass, because the worst thing in the world would be for an emergency vehicle with someone in the back that needs to get to UMass to get stuck in the mud on that grass and not be able to move, and somebody to be damaged or lose their life. So that was a topic of discussion when the state came in, because really, whatever I've seen them in Princeton and they're just cobblestones. That's fine. What else do we have going on?
Next one for it, yeah, with
It-
the water and sewer line that we just put in.
Well, and I think our biggest concern from a town point of view too is all of our businesses are downtown, and the state just looks at us and says, you don't get to park on a highway, on a state highway. You've seen it. You've been here a couple of days. Country Super can be from here to there. Wait till you see Thursdays when they do prime rib. Um, It's packed, both sides of the street, you know, the hairdressers and everyone. That's been a concern. The state has worked with us and then, but as part of that also, we will be redeveloping the common. Moving some trees, we have a few.
And they're taking the park
That are
away
dead.
from Fettle and Crum and the Thompson strip. there.
Exactly. But the common will be redesigned. That was in the works.
This is Clee Street's project.
Where, yes. Of course, it's federally, 85% federally funded and then state funded, and when it will actually begin is an unknown, I think. You know, the budget's looking at both federal and state. I don't know what's gonna happen.
I think we're gonna be looking at that 40B project on 45 Milford Street at the same time. We're doing the roundabout in 140.
Yes, potentially.
How many units?
27
27.
townhouse units.
But is there anything you can think of that? I mean,
So-
without over, remember,
Yeah,
it's
we're
state
obviously
two.
not gonna do
No.
it in a 5-minute meeting. Like,
I think those are the big
there
ones.
is a priority listing, a select board priority listing we worked with Joe on
Okay.
that had all of the different projects, their relative priority, and I'm assuming he sent a version of that to Dennis, so they should have that. It essentially looks sort of like, almost like a project plan, right? Sort of all of the priorities on the left, and then sort of how complete they are.
Capital plan, right?
No, it wasn't the capital plan. Remember, we went through and just created a list of what the priorities were for the select board, things we wanted to talk about, issues we wanted to address.
Yeah.
The bridge on Maple Street, just all those sort of little things so that we didn't lose track. So we have them in a document that's listed. And you need to find that for you so that you can have that referred to. And then walk us through what I think would be an effective exercise, which is a planning and prioritization exercise for all of those things. We should have, you know, planning is sort of continuous, but we should probably have a pretty disciplined quarterly planning process or conversation around, let's check in on the big priorities. Let's make sure we're not forgetting about the little priorities and things that need to get done. I think we're all big advocates of, you know, making sure that we address all issues, large and small, and that we don't just focus on the big stuff. Obviously, some of the things you mentioned are the big things. Having to do an operational override, the TIP project up 140, certainly that's great. There's lots of other
DPW
critical
project.
projects in town.
Expansion.
Yeah, DPW expansion, the figuring out how we disposition Holy Angels, right? Like that sort of has been put on hold, but we've got to figure out what we're doing with that for people. We still hold on to the Racine building, don't have a sort of clear and imminent plan or path forward for that. So there's several sort of outstanding priorities that we just need to figure out. What's the plan? How do we want to get after these? And when do we want to get after these? But I think going through that list as a group would be
Yeah.
very beneficial so that we know that we're not missing anything by just trying to call stuff on the top.
So there's projects, and then a few months ago, we were able to convene a multi-board meeting. Because we don't like to operate in a vacuum. I mean, sometimes, you know, we have planning, we have EDC, we have zoning. Our CMRPC is trying to adjust all of our zoning bylaws so that they kind of meld together and make sense, because we found that this one says yes, this one says no, and this one says maybe. So we're cleaning them up. But multi-board meetings so that we know what happens when we all come together. You know, the first one was a great success. People liked it just to say, hey, this is what we've seen. This is what's in front of us. This is, you know, planning can tell us, hey, this is coming down the pipe. We've heard rumors of this and that. And that way we're not surprised. We're not looking at it at the last minute. We'd like to do, I think, some more of those.
I think those we could probably do like twice a year, sort
I
of,
think so.
probably once or twice a year.
I mean, it's not a regular basis, but it is nice to know. Because sometimes we see the warrant, we're like. You know.
Once
what
or
is-
twice a year, but with an update every day.
Now, do you have liaisons to different boards and committees?
Yes.
Yes. So sometimes major updates can come through those channels as well, but it's not the same as getting everybody into the same room. I
Right.
recognize that is often really helpful because well, I guess sometimes you can have too many people, but usually the more heads you put together, the better the ideas are that you can come up with. So, and everybody not working in silos, is really important because you'll think of something big picture maybe as a group that you might not have thought of individually as a board or committee because your focus is more narrow onto what your role is. So I like that idea.
That's right, not often, but at least a couple times, just to see what's what.
Mhm.
Just before we know it, the May meeting will be here. Encountering,
That's,
Obviously, it goes without saying, the most pressing issue is the budget.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we started having some conversations around that, day two.
Yes.
That is at the forefront of my mind and the priority. And I feel, based on the information that I've been able to receive so far, that we are on a path. I hope to be able to schedule hearings before you for your next meeting. That is my goal. And then get that process rolling. I feel confident that we can certainly be on track for town meeting. That won't be any delays there. And, there may be a few other projects that are a little slow to pick back up as the budget and the town meeting warrant are focused on. But that's why I like that idea too. And maybe this is even like a after town meeting, prioritize which projects you're working on in what I like to call the project season. So, you have the budget town meeting season, you have the project season. You have to do both at all times, but you're heavier focused on one or the other. So I like that idea of getting together and doing that.
And I definitely don't want to add pressure to people that are sort of working hard on something, but I do think that there's an opportunity to have a conversation and understand why we typically get a budget in January and this year we're getting it in March. But something changed, so I'm curious what it was that changed, and obviously having an interim town manager is part of it, so that maybe that's the simplest explanation is we had Dennis running around doing a million things and he wasn't focused on something else, or something happened with Kenny, or something happened somewhere else in the process, or we didn't get information or whatever it was. But we want to, I think, as the board, certainly as an individual, I think our historic practice of having a preview of that budget in the January timeframe, even though we don't do a lot with it in the January, February timeframe, is important because it gives not only us as a select board, but the finance committee time to reflect, socialize a little bit, have some discussions and conversations, right? These are big numbers and these aren't things that you just want people reacting to in the moment. You really want to give people time to think about it. So I think, we've been able to accomplish that in previous years. I'd love to be able to get back to that for next year as opposed to
I
this
think,
becoming
honestly,
the
I
new
think
normal.
what happened, I think this was a combination of things. I think it was a domino effect. Our free cash wasn't certified till almost the end of January. And I think whatever started back in the fall just hit dominoes, but you're right, Brett, we need it in January. And I know there's been a little bit of discussion.
Free
Yes.
cash was always in
Free cash is always in October
Yeah.
and
sometimes September.
there was I know it was raised or somebody raised it to me, I'm not sure which, but maybe the November meeting, it's kind of crept towards the very beginning of November, maybe it needs to be moved a week or so in, without conflicting with Thanksgiving,
Tax classification hearing, or are you talking a special town?
special town meeting.
Special town meeting.
Yeah, but like I said, I think it started there and there was just a domino effect, but who knows, we do need to bring some people in and ask the hard questions.
Or you can ask our questions and just tell us.
Yeah, that's true.
I just want to know. You can send me an email. I just want to be able to explain it to people.
I think you have a bit of a perfect storm going on. This is the worst time of year to switch jobs in this profession. I'm not gonna lie. I'm outgoing, going, well, I don't, one area in a lurch, but I'm recognizing I need to move in and get going here. It's really a challenge, and I've been down this path before. And if, internal interims are often challenging because they're assuming all of their regular responsibilities plus taking on this additional role, which is not a small or easy one. So I do give Dennis an awful lot of credit for everything
Huge.
he was able to
Yeah.
do.
No doubt.
And I feel confident in where we're at. And I do like to do a calendar. January is usually the time that I typically make my recommendations. So that aligns with what I'm familiar and used to. But that calendar would come before you in the fall prior to budget season starting. So that way we can make sure we're all on the same page as to when things will be delivered, what the expectations are, and making sure the FinCom is in the same boat too.
Yeah.
So I like that calendar. And of course, it's subject to some flexibility, but I like to have a general layout of where we're headed and have everybody on the same page.
I think that's where they were the figures. How do you work?
Sure. So we can,
Cash,
But I do like the idea of a calendar and planning. I think
Absolutely.
we've just been used to things happening and to see it in writing, and so we can say, hey, are we on track? Not on track. And things won't get into the weeds, hopefully.
and it's nice too, because then everyone can plan the next 6 months, because really it's at least a
Right,
6-month process. So I find that that's helpful too, and just keeping those lines of communication open. As you probably noticed today, I'm a blind copy person, but I will always say who is on the blind copy. I like during budget season to make sure that both the select board and the finance committee are blind copied on any email, so that you're all receiving the same information at the same time, because otherwise that gets confusing if you hear one thing over here and another over here. So, as I said in my interview, if anything, I may be an over communicator, and you can just tell me to stop, that you've had enough. But I think it's more important to get that info out there and just let you know it's an FYI, and you can just pass it through and lock it back in your brain.
And I think that was probably as much the challenge this year was
Right.
that it was not expected. So we sort of just like,
be thankful
coming,
to have
coming,
it.
coming.
Yeah.
So I think at least you can have a conversation and say, hey, here's what's going on, react to it.
Right, and say, okay, we gotta move this a week or that, but you have that kind of structure plan.
Structure timeline is a great thing.
Yeah.
Keeps us all in line. So, good.
It's not it takes about 3 to 4 hours to do that calendar, which sounds insane, but trying to literally line everything up so that it works and from the outset, oh yeah, it's all about timing.
Yeah.
So,
What other questions? Do you have more?
I do have one more, well, two. Free cash being certified, and it's a relatively sizable number. If you could wave a magic wand and, do anything with that free cash, what would you do?
What do you-
Fiction is nice, but.
I can't get places.
Yeah.
I thought you might.
We usually do, small, well, they're not small, but they're smaller than borrowing for our equipment.
Yep. Do you have any guidelines for use of free cash, like you said?
Yeah, there's
aside
financial
percentage?
policies. So I
Oh,
think the
yes.
financial policies lay out, some going into reserve, some going into capital reserve, some going into the
Stabilization.
stabilization and those kind of things. So, that's sort of the first cut at the apple is that financial policy. And then once we've met the financial policy sort of commitments or goals, then you've sort of got that chunk of money that I think, to your point, the first thing is that's sort of our first tranche, first place we go to when we start to do capital improvements every year or capital investments, whether it's ambulances or,
Yeah,
equipment
fire
for the
trucks
DPW.
or highway trucks or,
So you
Yeah.
don't set aside a certain percentage for that year's capital plan?
we have a
Or-
capital stabilization that we put money in.
Right, but not for the projects that year. You kind of
That's it.
subtract off the top and that's
That's right.
what's.
Not yet,
There's no
no.
like, hey, let's look at, I think we could do a much better job, but I love the idea of having like if the free cash is this, here's how we prioritize and go through and spend it down.
Yep.
I don't think that we do that, right? I don't think we've got a sense of like, okay, here's the next 20 things to spend free cash on. But I would love to have that list because I think it would help us have a conversation
And
around.
I think Upton has been, we do run a very lean ship, but by the same token, sometimes we defer maintenance. And that's an issue.
Do all cities in town.
Yeah.
Buildings and everything else. And I mean, we do, We like to look like Neiman Marcus, but we really shop at Walmart.
Will not cheat.
Yeah.
That's what she calls
Right,
it.
right. Well, you know, and I joke, my youngest first words, I swear, was, is it on sale and do we have a coupon? But that's the way we run the town. But I do think we should do a better job of looking at capital for the next few years and free cash and start moving things so that we don't have large expenses. When you have $42 million budget, large is relative, but still.
And one of the things that I often sort of wondered to myself about, I think I've talked about it in different over the years, but like at some point, if you're consistently generating as much free cash as we're generating, like at some point you have a conversation that says, can we be a little more aggressive with our budgeting? Are we
Correct.
being a little, meaning like, let's just keep this in taxpayers' pockets?
Well,
So, right, because at some, and I know Kenny does an amazing job with the budget, our town managers, so this is not a criticism of anybody or any policy that we've got. It's just a question and a conversation that I think we should have that says, hey, if we look back over the past 8 years of free cash, what's that number? And is that our target number? Like, is that what we want it to be? Or do we think it could be lower? Or frankly, maybe we think we should be more conservative in our budgeting. I don't know. But I think having that conversation would be a very good one to have. And I'm not sure that we've had that conversation as part of our fiscal policy discussions.
I think you're right. Now that we've built the reserves, we
That's right.
didn't have them years ago, but
Yeah.
we have a very healthy reserve.
Right.
And
Yeah.
but the money doesn't do the town any good just sitting there collecting interest
no.
if we're not touching it.
We gotta
And
get
if
better.
it's on the backs of our residents who can't afford to stay in town, that's not. my
Gotta
goal.
get a little bit better on estimated receipts too.
Yeah.
I think personally, we're way too conservative.
So, yeah, you've said that before. Exactly. It's the same kind of
It all
issue with
goes
sort of
into the same
budgeting.
pot.
Yeah.
That is the battle that I call let's make a deal between usually the finance officer and the town manager of, hey, can I take a little bit? No, we really want to be conservative. So, we kind
Yeah,
of
that's,
ebb
that's
and flow. And
exactly.
then I call it, let's make a deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. Like, what do you feel
And
comfortable?
we've done that, and that's when you've articulated that sort of concern, like, hey,
Well, I
these
think we
receipts,
have-
we should feel
Yeah, I
like,
think we have a lot of reserves on overlay too. And I mean, because that takes a vote of the Board of Assessors to release some of that. The only way, all you have to keep in there is what you have outstanding if you have cases for tax cases
Or
or.
anticipated if you know
Yeah.
something's coming down the pipe.
And you keep that in there. But I think that's pretty hefty too.
Well, and if you don't have a significant number of outstanding ATV cases that are high value, that's certainly something you can look at reducing. And that's a great, actually, coming together, meeting with the Board of Assessors and the Select Board and talking about when you're setting tax classification and all of those things. That's a great time to talk about overlay.
Right.
And, you can also talk about exemptions, abatements, where you're at for asset limits, things like that. Those are all great things to have a chat about, once a year.
Well, we have an increase in those this year at the past town meeting.
Okay.
Yeah. So they have to take-
Well, and one of the things when I see a high free cash number, I think two things. You've already hit on one, which is, looking at facility repairs and improvements. But I think you also want, and I haven't gotten this far into the budget, but I like to see a strong maintenance fund built into an operating budget. And that's really where you can actually take a chunk of that free cash and permanently remove it. If you look at the last 10 years and you can say, hey, okay, so here's $500,000 that is consistently being generated, but our buildings are deteriorating. And when you patch a hole, you save a whole lot more money then than if you have to replace the whole roof. So that is an investment in long-term savings that I would look at as part of
we would
it.
want to advocate for that.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, because cities and towns are notoriously terrible about maintaining their facilities, because when you have urgent needs, when you have shortages in public safety and your response times go up and, you don't have enough police out there, then unfortunately what gets cut are buildings, because that's something that's not gonna, immediately be in your face as a concern in terms of life and safety. And I think you also want to look at staffing as well and see where you are at. I understand from talking to a couple of department heads, there are some staffing requests in the 27 budget. And that's another thing that I would like to look at when you see a healthy free cash number. Are you really staffing at the levels you need to be at?
And I think for years, staffing has been stagnant in some departments and it really needs to be adjusted. You know, we've grown,
We've been pretty
the needs are
selective,
different.
yeah.
Just to make it clear, we're not gonna spend free cash on staffing. It's to reduce, it's
Yeah.
to increase the budgets, to reduce the free cash.
Right. Well, and that's, yeah, if you are having a significant amount of budget turnover at the end of the year,
Every year. but-
you know, from certain areas, you can also look at where do we shift, right? As opposed to taking from. But it's a challenge that I think most cities and towns are facing too. And so it's great to have reserves and that's important, but you also just want to make sure everything's being funded at the levels it needs to be funded at. Right. So.
Yeah, anything?
Last question I had were goals in terms of economic development. And I know that's often a challenge, especially in a small town. I grew up in a small town. I worked in 2 small towns. You want to retain the nature of what makes Upton Upton and what makes Upton special, but you also want to reduce the burden that you put on the residential taxpayers. So how do you strike that balance? And are there areas that you see, like particular places in town where you might see development opportunities? Or are we just like, no, we don't want to do that, and that's fine.
Well, no, I think, you know, I think we always have the argument that we're a residential tax base, that's it.
Yeah.
But the residential tax base is getting unsustainable. I mean, as the town grows and you know, I said once, you know, years ago, my mother sat on zoning and we put large lot zoning in the 2.5 acres on the outskirts. We wanted to keep it rural and oops, we made it very exclusive. And that's an issue. I do think, you know, personally, when I look at town, you know, the outskirts, I remember when you interviewed, you said, you know, we kept Berlin rural because we kept the flavor of the town and the developments. For example, Bass Pro is on the outskirts. It's on the Marlboro-Berlin border. The
Yep.
malls are pushed out now. If we could manage something like that, you know, some of our, as you head towards Milford or Grafton, it is our commercial zone, but there's no town water or sewer.
We don't have any major highways.
We don't
that
have any
close.
major-
It's 140 or 122 and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no overstating the challenge that the tax rate in the town has on people.
Sure.
Some people, and I think you're always gonna have that. I don't think we're gonna do much to change the mix of residential to commercial tax base, like it would require things we just don't have, which is a lot of money and a lot of infrastructure.
And proximity to. like
And
you said,
proximity to major.
Right.
Right.
And I can tell you that I think that it's okay to lean into that and do more of what makes Upton great and attractive to so many people, including the people that have been here for generations, which is its open space, its sort of rural character, the farming community. Right, so I think if we're gonna lean into those kinds of things to maintain the nature of the town, then that's good. I think we need to work on affordable housing. When I think of economic development, I also think of affordable housing because that helps with some of the new folks coming into town or young folks that are living, that grew up in town, that want to stay in town. I don't think it helps the 80 to 90-year-old or 70 to 80 to 90-year-old folks because they don't want to move. They shouldn't have to move. We don't want them to have to move out of their lifelong house. And that is a particular demographic that like we've been really focused on as a board over the past few years of like senior tax credits, senior tax work off. What can we do to ease the burden on people on fixed incomes or with limited disposable income? And I really, as a board member, I would really like to find a way to do more to incentivize people staying, enabling people, not even have to incentivize them, to make it possible for people who want to stay in this town, who have lived here for a long time, to stay in this town through some kind of tax program. We started I think we started a program where residents can contribute money into a fund, and that fund is made available to certain taxpayers to defer their taxes. I don't think that that's gone far at all, but I think it's just an example of it, the type of thing we're trying to solve for when we talk about economic development, because like, we're just not gonna have a Walmart tomorrow. Like, it's not gonna happen, and we don't want a Walmart tomorrow, let me be clear about that, right? I think we want the town the way it is. I think the large lot zoning was put in place in the 40s and 50s very intentionally and strategically because of how people wanted to live their lives.
Yeah.
They wanted space, they wanted privacy, and they wanted peace and quiet, and they wanted open space. And that's what we've got. So mission accomplished. The cost of that is it makes it really hard for people that live in these what are now very expensive homes on very expensive pieces of land. That's not what they bought into 50 years ago. So that's the other side of that greatness that is Upton, is you're putting some people in a pinch. So how do we alleviate that challenge for people? I think is really
That's
important.
basically what happened to most of the farmland is they can afford the taxes and these
That's right.
developers come in and offer them big money.
That's right.
Yep. And,
Funny you mentioned a wall.
this is a state program, state issue, because I've seen people up on Beacon Hill saying, you know, maybe we should freeze the seniors' taxes, maybe we should try to do this. There's multiple bills pending at the moment. I don't know where any of them will go, but, you know, I've often, and
No, I
I
hope it
wonder
helps.
if you could do, you know, honestly, I've said it, you know, you set a criteria, I don't know if it's legal or not. You've lived in town for 20 years, you're 65, 70, 75, whatever, pick a number. This has been your primary residence. But just like chapter lands, if we can freeze your tax bill, so if it's X, when you meet that criteria, you live there another 20 years, and then when you sell, you pay 5 or 10 years back taxes. Because the bottom line is everybody's house is worth a small fortune, but you can't touch it.
Right.
There's no reasonable way, as a realtor, there's no reasonable way to touch it, the equity, without getting in trouble. But once you're gone.
You don't want people taking home equity loans to pay their mortgage or to pay their taxes rather, right?
Right, so
They
if we
have
did-
mortgage, they're just
if-
paying taxes.
If,
Right.
and there's various programs like that on a state level, if we could develop something like that, where, okay, you've retired, now you can afford this, but your tax bill isn't gonna go up $1,000 a year when your income doesn't match it.
Well, just what you said about the chapter land, they've already started something like that. They do
Yeah.
have to pay 5-year rollback taxes on.
Right, on
forest-
chapter land,
on
if you sell,
forest, But not agricultural.
right,
That's the only one that doesn't have to pay the rollback taxes.
right, so,
Trying to save the land.
it's on something like that, you know, that makes more sense, especially for people with, you know, they've been in their houses for generations.
And that's a challenge when maybe you bought your house for $40,000 and now it's worth $750,000, which is great, but you don't plan on moving out anytime soon and you're on a fixed income trying to pay your tax bill. And I've seen it and it's a problem and it does sadly sometimes price people out and that's not what you want. And you don't want farms priced out. You don't want the community to change, you know, essentially in its nature. I think those kind of conversations are great ones to have, like when our state rep is here about creative programs where the legislature would need to get involved, but how do we bring that to a local level? Can we get that adopted under MGL and then have town meeting make that adoption?
I asked David about that at one point and he said perhaps we could do a home rule. But there are, like I said, right now, there's 4 or 5 bills currently pending on the state level.
Yeah.
So somebody's started to do the legwork.
They are, and then there's a lot of conversations around that. There's also a lot of conversations around the state kicking in more to local cities and towns. I referenced the word "A Perfect Storm" earlier, but there is a wonderful report. If you haven't seen it, it's like 7 pages long. It's called "A Perfect Storm." The Mass Municipal Association put it out, and it talks about how severely underfunded New England and Northeast cities and towns are from state funds compared to the other states in the nation, and it is low. Massachusetts comes in like 13th,
Wow.
like from the bottom in terms of what is funded through the state as opposed to the local level. And I always say, and this is my favorite thing to preach, like, we have a 20% recreational marijuana tax, 3% goes back to communities, whereas the rest of the 17%, right? Now you have a millionaire's tax. So, and I understand schools and roads, but also that unrestricted general government aid is so critically important. And you've really got a structural deficit when school budgets are going up far more than 2.5% per year. And there is a need there. There is a genuine need there. And that's where you need the state to step in. So I think having those conversations with legislators and keeping track of those bills, which is something I could certainly look at, and just seeing, you know, what's on the horizon and advocating for it is huge.
But the thing is, they go by the income instead of taking a look at everything. They just go by the, you know, the income of different towns and everything. If
It's
it's high, you get nothing.
Well, and that's what kills
Mhm.
Upton is Upton borders Hopkinton, which is Middlesex County. And I tell everyone that you want to buy an FHA home in Upton, all you get is roughly 585,000. I don't know the exact number. 2 miles over the border in Hopkinton, you get just under $1 million.
Yep.
Same loan.
You're in the
Different
Middlesex
county.
market than a different county.
Exactly,
That's right.
exactly, which is why people jump over to Upton. But then,
And just in the context of economic development too, right, like I think what makes us different from those towns is, again, it's very intentional and what we want, like, we're not Grafton, we're not Westboro, we're not Hopkinton, we're not Northbridge or Milford or Uxbridge, right? We're very unique and we have access to all of the resources in those places, right? The grocery stores and all that, so people are close by to, you know, amenities and conveniences, and we're sort of this little, you know, green spot of goodness that I think we need to, you know, recognize and maintain, that it's very special. And I don't think we want to sort of accidentally find our way into like looking just like Grafton, Westboro, Southboro, and then ultimately Framingham and those kinds of like that. That's not what I want 140 to look like in 100 years, right? Like I don't want it to just be a road with a bunch of strip malls, 2/3 of which are empty. Like it's just not what we want. So again, I think what's here is pretty intentional and we definitely have challenges, but we need to sort of continue to lean into what makes us special.
Well, that's one of the things that drew me, because I came from a community that as well, with a similar mentality of we're 40% conservation land because we want things to stay this way and be open space. And what can you do on the periphery, which, well, when you have 495 and 290 right there, that's kind of a different story. But at the same time, there's a reason that you have a community like that. And like you said, you've had so much grown up around, and I grew up in a town where you had to go out to Auburn, Worcester, wherever you were gonna go, but you lived in there. So bedroom communities have a lot of challenges, but they're unique, they're special, and you don't want to take that away. So it really is a balance.
They better get that 495 committee going again. That was, it was shared solutions and regional planning so that like Upton that has no business, and then you got Hopkinton that has all this business, but they're moving to Upton, and of course the taxes go up in Upton and they have all the business in Hopkinton that,
They get all the revenue.
yeah, they get all the revenue.
Right.
Good stuff. This is great. Start.
any questions or comments from anyone in the audience for any of us or the new town manager?
Hey, Laura, can
Yes.
you hear me? This is,
Question, conversation about promotion. Procedurally wise, would you just like me to send the recommendation to the town manager? She can make the appointment and hopefully waive the 15-day.
Yes, would you prefer a motion that we waive the 15-day process?
That would be fantastic.
Do I hear a motion to waive the 15-day process for the
Make a motion
promotions?
that we waive the 15-day process.
I'll
for
second.
promotion in the fire department.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye,
Unanimous.
there you go.
Thanks, chief. Somebody's got to keep us
And
on
we
our
all
toes.
support the promotions.
Yes.
Clear.
And to that.
Congratulations and thank you.
Mhm.
Oh, sorry, I just, one of the things that I had the same, I was a 14-day period, but the same thing, like a veto period by the select board. So what I would do is in a select board agenda, I would do a notice of intent to appoint. So say I got something from public safety, this is what they want to do. I would give a notice of intent to appoint, have the select board vote on that appointment, so that waives that 14-day period. You can even do it on a case by case basis, because it's just not fair to think that somebody's, and you're not gonna do it, first of all, you're not gonna retract unless there's
They
some
do
huge
all-
thing that happened, right?
They're the ones that do the search and the background checks and all of that.
Correct. It's a check and balance in
Yes.
case you had a strange scenario that you needed to rein in, right? Let's put it that way. But generally, you can't ask someone to wait 2 weeks in case their promotion or their hiring might get vetoed. So we can talk if that's something the board's interested in, that notice of intent to appoint, and then you can vote on it and waive that period right then and there.
All of any future issues.
Yeah.
Especially when the board forgets to make a motion.
Yes.
We'll have it written up for you.
Okay, and Mike,
Sorry, I wasn't here earlier. The town has very little, if you look at the town demographically, there's nothing to expand business. You may get some small type businesses in the downtown area. I mean, when we did our study years ago, we did the maximum build out of Upton. I think we did our private house study many years ago, and it's a better community.
always will be.
I love the word affordable housing in Upton. The affordable housing number, I think, that is an unreal number when we say affordable housing. When we approve these projects that these builders put in, they're not gonna build like in Jimmy Stewart movie there, where the little village with the small little ranches, because they can't make any money. That I've talked to developers and they, we can't make any money. Maybe we need to force those hands on this stuff, but the word affordable is not, it's a rouge.
It is, it's a state formula and it's based on our income. And unfortunately, because, as I said, we border Middlesex and we're a hop, skip and a jump from Boston. And we have a lot of professionals that pull in a lot of money,
And the other thing too with our community is, we took a path of a lot of over 55. We took big chunks of land, for the over 55 people, and they have the needs. There was a thought that they used to talk about with the approval of the over 55 projects, that they weren't gonna add to our school system.
they add to a lot of our first responder system and the
You add
ambulance call.
a different level, and a lot of those people, they don't get involved with that stuff.
Mhm.
They're just not looking to get it, so there's a ending and
The pendulum swings both ways.
yeah, so the other thing too is we don't move our town utilities very much unless it's for a project or something. And there's people in town that when they had the proposed original design of the sewer and water system, and they're not even, 50 years later, they're not even close to getting that. To get that to them. But yeah, when the development goes in, running up the street to that. I'd say we're a bedroom community, we're gonna have to figure out how to maintain with that, maintain that level of, services people expect, but we're lucky we have Dunkin' Donuts.
We have 2 traffic lights now.
No, really, I mean, that's your brand name, maybe Prime Gas is a brand name, I don't know. But, we don't even have a brand, like local Texaco. We have a Dunkin' Donuts. And that's small town, you look at where you came from, they had the 495, we don't have.
But I grew up in a small town with 2 traffic lights and still no grocery store, but yet we sold farmland for a Walmart. So when you talk about the Walmart,
You're right.
it's a touchy subject. It really is.
But Hopkinton had the vision of that South Street. They took that off and built that. Unfortunately, it's kind of empty right now. But the buildings are there, somebody's paying taxes on something. But that development there, when they looked at doing something like that on East Street in Upton, the people that lived up there, they went nuts. You're not taking my family and I'm not gonna rezone that area, so. But it's our bedroom. You know, and it's,
Agreed.
that's kind of like what it is, and there's not too many, I think if the town planner or anybody just to pick up a map, there's not a real lot of large parcels left. We talked about years ago about the maximum build out, how many people are actually gonna be here in Upton and what we could afford with public safety. And when you look at those numbers, you know, it's gonna force some hands and some different things, for a lot of communities around. There are communities like, they're gonna be forced to look at stuff like regionalization services and different stuff that you may, you know, not, yeah, they don't get to do it, but you may have to, in order to maintain. That's from every community. There's no big pieces of land. If you look at, other than the proposed one at the top of the hill, there isn't a couple of small pockets, which is not a lot left, because we bought it for the space.
We did our job, you know, but
Well, and that's really helpful too, is I'm getting like the 50,000 foot overview right now, right? To understand, are there places, is there an appetite? And generally, what is the sense of the community, right? Because, you know, you could have said to me, oh, well, we have this place over here, we just need to do this with it. That's really why I asked the question. I assumed it was that the answers that you're giving were the answer, but I want to know because I take my direction from you.
and what was fascinating to me was I was on the housing production plan. And somebody from Worcester came in and said, you need to develop denser here. Well, congratulations, it was from the United Parish right down. I'm like, that is our densest. How about some condos? You could use some condos. I said, we have condos. She goes, great, they're affordable. I said, yeah, our condos start at 800,000. She knew nothing about the town and was just, but I see, and it's like, no, there's no, like, she thought we could build 4 or 5 houses on every lot downtown, and it's like, there's only feet. That's the densest part of town.
Well, I know accessory dwelling units can be controversial, but I'll tell you, you know, as someone who wanted to move back to my hometown, but was single and 25 and had a couple dogs, but not any kids. A single family home on 2 acres is just not financially feasible for most kids that want to stay. We have some of the best colleges in the country, but we can't keep people here because there's no place for them. So they take all that talent and all those resources and they go out. So, and on the flip side, accessory dwelling units for seniors, a mother-in-law unit, you know, those kinds of things. And it doesn't have to be like every single house has an accessory dwelling unit, but that really genuinely is part of the way to solve our housing problem in Massachusetts without really redefining your zoning and putting in condos where they shouldn't be and high rises and things that aren't going to meld with the nature of the community.
Because I've had conversations with some of my clients, you have a very large house. You can rent that for X amount per month and you could put an ADU and you could live there and kind of oversee it. And they almost pass out when they find out that their house will rent for $4,000 a month. You know, that's $48,000 a year in income in your pocket that will help pay the taxes.
One thing that we haven't talked about, but is an active ongoing conversation is the sort of West Upton revitalization. So there's a conversation that I think is being run out of the Economic Development Committee looking specifically in the West Upton area, similar to what we did for downtown here at this center here, doing a similar type of exercise that'll involve conversations and research and workshops and trying to look at, I don't know, there's too much to be done over there.
I'd like to get our capital plan up and running. I think it's
Yeah.
older. I think it needs to be reviewed and updated.
Hey, Laura, this is Steve.
Yes.
Can
Hi, Steve.
kind of a good spot. I was trying to interject earlier. Very interesting conversation. I just wanted to remind the board and tell Kristen, Joe did secure a grant with the Collins Center to get a 5-year capital plan. So we've touched on it a lot. Brett just mentioned it again. So that is where we are waiting for that to happen. It was supposed to happen earlier in 2025 and Joe's exit. Dennis did attempt to put Dan Lazars and I in touch with them to kind of keep that moving forward as he was the interim so the pressure wasn't put on to someone like Kristen. So that should be in the works. I think we're on schedule with them in the spring, but Kristen, I'm sure Dennis can forward it to you, or I can forward you what their response was. Secondly, on the free cash stabilization, everything, we have been pretty deliberate in how we've been doing the budget and how we've been doing these things. And Christian, you hit on one of the major reasons why we have free cash. Our local receipts are conservative. We had some movement on that last year. And another reason why we get a significant amount of free cash is the town managers, both preceding town managers have kind of held the line on budgets early on in the year to kind of make sure that there is some free cash. So I think that is probably something that has been a positive thing in the past that I'm not sure we're going to see going forward. But all good conversation. I'm happy to have that conversation. You can come to we can have a finance committee meeting. You can come there. We're probably going to talk a lot during the budget process, but all good conversation, but we can walk through how we got to where we are and why we are where we are. I don't think it's a negative thing. I think it's all been positive. 2 town managers ago, Derek Brindisi put a lot of financial policies into place that I think Brett touched on. We wanted to get to 10% stabilization, which we're at. The free cash, I think, was, kind of a benefit that we've been experiencing. But the schools are coming to us with a lot of things and we don't really have any visibility to this year's numbers, but I just wanted to mention that. I wanted to mention more of the Collins thing because I know the capital plan has been something I've been pushing for and, complaining about to the board and to others because it is something that we need. The last one we did might have been Blythe, which is 3 town managers ago. So really something that we need. I know that the fire chief, the police chief are in the audience. Their facilities, especially the police station. I mean, that should be something we're looking at and on the list of things that we need to improve. So I just wanted to chime in and mention that because it was a topic earlier that I wasn't able to get in on. But look forward to working with you, Kristen, on the budget, and I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Thank you. We will.
Thanks, Steve. We appreciate your comments.
Great.
Yep.
And I'm glad you interrupted because if there was a hand up, I can't see that far.
Yes.
Quite frankly, sorry.
Good.
Anything else? Anybody else have questions, comments? Okay.
I was just gonna ask you, when the warrant closes, does the warrant
Close.
close?
Yep.
All right, I guess I missed that.
I think so. Sure.
Great.
Okay. So the only other thing on the agenda are our minutes. Did anybody see the minutes and the revisions?
Yeah.
Questions, comments?
On me.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
A motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of February 17th, 2026.
Second?
As amended, you mean? Because that's
amended.
As amended.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous?
Make a motion to approve the executive meeting minutes
As amended.
as amended of February 25th, 2026.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn the meeting at what time? 7:08 on March 3rd.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.